Hey there YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger. In this video I am going to be talking about the NUX mg30 firmware update version 5. Now NUX, they removed the update from the website. There was a massive outcry from people who owned the unit because the firmware update had some issues. Now, don't get me wrong, I updated to version 5, is what it's called, and I am over the moon, unbelievably thrilled for the update. It's by far the best update they've ever done for the device. The device has been out for a while. This is version 5. This is kind of unheard of. Typically, as the firmware updates, as time passes, they don't like, oh, version 5 is the one where they really implement some amazing feature. But they did. Now, when they first announced it, they said, hold on to your hats, because this update is really something else, but your patches may not be compatible. All your work that you did dialing this thing in, man, I have spent a significant amount of time editing these patches and re-editing them and trying different things and getting it dialed in. And I'm not trying to, you know, I gotta get the tone Kimpdale outshined Soundgarden. I need that tone. I'm writing my own music, so it's like the mg30 sounds incredible, but you have to earn it. It's not the easiest device. They had another one called the mg300, the little brother. That's like not a bad sound and I bought that first. And then they came out with this new one, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna get this because it's the mg30 300 was kind of a little rinky-dink, but it sounded incredible. And so I copied over my patch information identical, and it didn't sound anything like it. And my heart just sank, and then I realized, well, maybe it's not the same, and I have to adjust this. And I went through it, and I did, and I found that through adjusting it and using third-party IRs and really getting down with it, I could get the mg30 to sound better than the 300. In fact, the best guitar tone I've ever had in my life by a long stretch. It's really something. Now the mg30, they don't give you a lot of extras. Some of the effects aren't so hot. The pitch shifter, like the whammy pitch shifter thing, people complain about it. I use it as an intelligent pitch shifter to do dual leads, and it's fine for what I do. The auto could be a little better, I think. And the freeze function on the reverb, where you hold down and it sings whatever chord you played into it. That's a little, you don't have any control of the volume of that. There's no way to edit that. And I tested the unit, and there was a 27 decibel deficit between the quietest freeze and the loudest freeze. So yeah. It's not to say that, you know, you take the good with the bad is what I'm saying. The NUX mg30, it sounds phenomenal, and there are some really fantastic effects in it, but where its strength is with the amp models. Now, version 5, you get 3 scenes, and inside those scenes, you can change, like scene 1, you could have your modulation effects shut off, and your delay shut off, just have the reverb. Scene 2, you could have the modulation effect come on. Scene 3, you could have the delay. You can also change stuff out. You can have different amp models in the scenes, and you can adjust parameters. Working with the impulse responses, it's a little bit more limited. You can't do as much with that but who's going to want to do that anyway? So it went from being like the scenes are handy and I really like them, but they're limited, to now the scenes are mind-blowingly great. I was only using 2 scenes per song. Now I'm using 3. They give you 3 and now I'm using that 3rd one. So yesterday I switched the unit over. I did a factory reset, and then I removed my custom image. There's an image of my cat that comes up when I boot it up. And so I made it like factory, and then I did the update. And then after it was done updating, I rebooted it and I did a factory reset again. Then I calibrated the expression pedal. Then I installed the new version of the software, which is called QuickTone, something. So first thing I did was install that picture, and then I installed the patches. I had backed up all my patches. I had individual saves and I had a bulk save. I went through and took pictures of all of them so I could see what each patch, what I was using. In case I couldn't load them or there was a problem, I could rebuild them from scratch. Well, the patches, the bulk load worked. But then when I went in there, all of my patches had stuff majorly wrong with them. Like, there's a send and receive, and that has volume sliders. All of the outputs were on 0 on the return. The send was on in the midpoint of its throw. Maybe that's 0, and then it's minus dB and plus dB. So I had to go through, and to get that slider right on 0 is really hard with my mouse. I tried upping the sensitivity, and there's 3 scenes, so each patch has 3 of those you got to do. And then there's, I don't know how many, 80 patches or something. Well, it wasn't just the send and receive, it was the master volume had the same problem, the plate reverb had the same problem. There was all kinds of stuff wrong with it. And also, as I was going through this, well, recently I'd gotten some new impulse responses, so I'm changing stuff up, and then I'm realizing, like, hey, you've got these scenes now. You were using 2 scenes, maybe you could use 3, so I'm building up on that 3 scene. I'm having to go and edit, like, basically redo the whole thing. And so I spent 4 hours last night, and I did the guitar instrumental set, which is like 12 patches, and then I did the 2024 set of music that we're playing now, which is 16. And that was 4 hours. And then today I went and I did all of the rest of the patches that are on the unit. There's a bunch of patches that are my music that I've written patches for, and then there's just other people's work, other patches that I found on the internet and I've auditioned, and they're still hanging around on the unit. Also, when I did the firmware update on version 5, I found that NUX had included an all-new bank of patches, as far as I knew. I'm sure they're older, but they weren't the same patches that came with the unit, with the version 1 when I got it. So I went through it. Of course, I had to audition those, which takes an hour to go through all of them. And there was 4 of them that I liked. I'm pretty picky about guitar sound. So, yeah, now I got done and I go over to the NUX forum and they're like, the update's gone. NUX pulled it. So I don't know if the work that I did today, when they released the new patched up firmware, the actual version 5, because what they're gonna do, they're not gonna leave that version out there. It's gone. They're gonna ignore that it ever happened. And then they're going to come out and more than likely say, here's the version 5 update. It's revised. Maybe they will call it 5.2. I don't know what they're going to do, but the point is I may have to go through and do all this again, or who knows. But I'm thinking maybe they had a new guy. Maybe the guy that was doing the firmware updates on that machine quit, and they had a new guy. And he didn't realize when you write this code, You can't just do a sloppy job because the guitar players are going to freak out if everything's broken. And the guitar players are really sensitive about change, and they're not very open-minded. So when stuff is different, they freak out. And boy, everybody freaked out. A lot of people were making mistakes. It's a really particular process. You have to pay attention and do everything according to the directions in order for it to work. And there's several mistakes you can optionally make if you don't pay attention. And the NUX mg30, NUX, this company is really popular with non-English speaking people. Tagalog or Filipino folks, I don't know the proper word, and I don't mean to be offensive, but I know they speak a language called Tagalog, and those Filipino folks, a lot of them have bought the NUX stuff. It's like they market it to Spanish-speaking people, so there's a language barrier, and a lot of people were upset. A lot of people were saying it's screwed up, it won't connect to the software. Well, I think a lot of those people just didn't update the software. When you update the firmware in the NUX mg30, you have to also get a new version of the software. It's called QuickTone. So if you don't do that, you're gonna be hating life. And even like I have backups of everything. So I saved the old version, I got the new version going, and it was disconnecting, and the other issue with version 5 is the expression pedal. It broke the expression pedal. The expression pedal was no longer smooth. It was stepping and like jumping. It was really bad. Now, I'm not using the foot operated pitch shifter or the wah-wah or the volume pedal. I use the volume pedal to mute it or to turn it up. Like if we're done with a song, I'll pull it back, and then I'll reach over and grab my iced tea because I don't want to, be bumping the open strings of the guitar when it's supposed to be silent. And then when the 4 count, when we're starting the next song, I'll throttle it back open. So I knew what I was getting into, and man, it was a lot of work. Man, I'm not throwing shade on NUX. I'm just making this video because it might be helpful to some people to watch it and learn about what I had to figure out and spend, plus 12 hours to bring this information to you as quickly as I could. I didn't want to make this a real long video. I think I did pretty good at 13 minutes. So we're going to be playing right now. We're going to try this out, and I got to see. The thing about it is, you can always go back to version 4. I've updated these songs to have there are 3 parts now, and if I can't comprehend that, or if I'm not tap dancing good enough, I can always go back. And it's not really that big of a deal unless you're pressed for time. Like me, I have a back injury. I'm just sitting on this couch. I can take a day and play around with the multi-effector if I need to. Most guys don't have that luxury. So I feel really bad for NUX because, man, they really did something amazing. This product's been out for a while, and then they're like really upgrading it rather than putting out a new product. And NUX got screwed. Whoever programmed this screwed NUX because, and the I don't know why they released it. The beta testers, who are they having beta testing this? Are they having beta testers who are like weed smoking guys? Like young guys that they just put it in and use the stock patch and like, yeah, dog, it's good. I'm not volunteering to beta test it, but they need to get some guys in their 50s who know that you need to leave no stone unturned with something like this. You have to try every single thing in the unit. You have to do things wrong. You have to, you know what I mean? You have to really be thorough if you're talking about something like that. And when you have people that are doing it improperly and they're claiming that the firmware update bricked their unit, or that they can't get on the QuickTime editor because they didn't even update the software, it's like it's really a bad place that you would find yourself in if you were like the NUX representative who's in charge of the forum. His name is Monk Lee, that guy. And he's been kind of dickish to me. He's never been nice to me. He's been a dick. He's been a total jagoff to me. And I have helped a real lot of people at that forum. So I made some images of thanks NUX, hooray, it's version 5 is alive. And his name is Monk Lee, so I put Monkey Lee, and then I had a little chimpanzee on there. And it was a big clef, like a treble clef, and people, they put these plexiglass covers over the screen. They're really into doing that to protect it. So I photoshopped a mirror on it, and then I thought, why don't I put some cocaine on the mirror? So I did that, and then the bass clef, I had a straw coming out of his nose onto it. So I put that image up yesterday because somebody was smoking crack at NUX when they did this firmware update. I'm telling you, it was not good. Not good. But on the other hand, I don't want you to get me wrong, because once I went through and spent that 12 hours fixing everything, what I ended up with is phenomenal. It's even better. It's really cool. I mean, one of the things that has bothered me about multi-effects since the beginning of time, and nobody really talks about this, if you have a patch, it's a complicated patch, a lot of stuff in it, and in scene 1 it's not so complicated. Scene 2 you add some more things. In scene 3 it's like everything's loaded. Well, you're gonna notice a perceived volume bump every time you add a pedal, a new effect. It gets a little louder. And so if you compare 3 to 1, the bare one and then the one where they start throwing more stuff into it and then it's loaded, you're really going to notice. And I mean, if you're running through an amp and it's compressed, you might not notice it, but I'm running into a headphone setup and I can really hear it. And it really bothers me when and initially they didn't allow you to change any parameters in the scenes. Now they do. So you can compensate for it. Meaning in scene 1 you turn the gain and the master volume up a notch, and then every time you add more stuff you can back it off a little bit because it's already making it louder, and then it's perfectly balanced in volume. So right there was like one of the main things that was a pet peeve of mine, and every product I've ever used did this. And NUX fixed it. If you're smart, you can program your unit that way to have the volume seamless. So I really don't want to come on here and trash NUX. I really don't want to sound like I'm coming down on the MG30, because I'm not at all. For its price, it's incredible how good it sounds. And I've heard people say it sounds better than the Helix. So I wouldn't know, and when it comes to a $2,000 or $2,500 thing, that's smoking crack. I simply can't afford it. So before NUX came along, I was screwed. I was just off on the side, picking up a used RP90 from Goodwill for $5 and playing around with that. You know, maybe find a Korg Pandora for $100 on Craigslist or something. And then, you know, NUX started putting out some lower cost stuff, and I absolutely love this company. They're phenomenal, but there's issues with it. Now, I have faith. I know they're going to do the right thing. I know they want this thing to have a reputation that it's like, it's 10 times cheaper, but it's better. No nonsense unit. Because I can live with, you know, if they're not going to fix the freeze section, the freeze function, fine. If they're not going to fix the stupid whammy thing, pitch shifter, fine. The latest update, they made it so you can shut the reverb off and and change it to a delay, so you can have dual delay pedals, which was one thing they didn't have before. Now you can, and that was one of my gripes, was I wanted to have 2 delays, because Hank Marvin, The Shadows, we were covering Ghost Riders in the Sky, and I didn't, and Apache was the song, and I didn't have that dual delay thing going. He's got a thing where he plucks and it goes like da 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 da. It does. It's like 2 delays and it makes this pattern. And I went to set it up and it's like I couldn't do it with the MG30. Well, now you can, and that's really like. I'm hoping that they will continue, that there'll be at least like 2 more firmware updates for this thing. I'm hoping. So I've been over there in the forum, I've been trying to say like, thank you and we appreciate this. Because everybody else, when they announced they were gonna do it, like a week later, people were like, where's that firmware update? I was like, man, calm down. You know, they said it was a big deal, that the engineer was working really hard to try to make the version 4 patches compatible with version 5. And people were like, just being dicks about it. And then it came out and everyone flipped out. And they're all putting up pictures of their competition's products. Should I buy one of these? It's like, yeah, why don't you go buy one of those? Go buy that Zoom 11 and see how good that does for you. And I'm a guy who loves Zoom stuff. All right, you guys, I got to stop talking. You get me going about this multi-effects. It's going to be a long night. Take care of yourselves, hug your pets, and peace. And I'll tell you what, if you're an amp guy with pedals and you've been curious about modeling, this is what you want to get. The NUX mg30. Trust me. There's a guy, Leo Gibson. He's an Italian guy. Check out his channel and hear what he has to say about it. Anyways, you guys, take care of yourselves, hug your pets again, and peace.